The morning sky turned black with ships. Thousands of them hung over every major city on Earth like dark clouds that refused to move. Their hulls were scarred and battle-worn, covered in strange markings that seemed to pulse with hostile energy. The ships were massive, each one larger than a city block, and they cast shadows that turned day into night. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center deep beneath Colorado's mountains. The screens around him flashed red with warning signals. Every radar, every satellite, every sensor screamed the same message. Hostile alien fleet in Earth's atmosphere. The largest invasion force anyone had ever imagined, now floated above humanity's home. "Sir, we count over 15,000 ships," reported Lieutenant Amy Rogers, her voice tight with fear. "They're positioning themselves over New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, and every other major population center." Jake nodded grimly. He had trained for this moment his entire career, but now that it was here, the reality felt impossible. How do you fight something this massive? How do you protect 7 billion people from an enemy that could destroy cities with a single shot? The alien ships began to broadcast on every frequency. The voice that came through the speakers was harsh and grating, speaking in perfect English but with an accent that sounded like grinding metal. "Primitive species of the third planet," the voice announced. "I am Fleet Commander Vex Thule of the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender immediately and prepare for integration into our forces. Resistance is pointless. We have conquered 17 star systems. Your weapons are toys compared to our power. You have one of your hours to respond." The broadcast ended, leaving only silence in the command center. Every person in the room looked at Jake, waiting for orders. Should they launch nuclear missiles? Should they evacuate the cities? Should they try to fight or simply give up? Before Jake could speak, another voice came through the communication system. This one was calm, warm, and completely unexpected. "Given the circumstances, this is President Lisa Martinez," the familiar voice said. "I'm speaking to Fleet Commander Vex Thule and all members of the Zephyrian Empire. Welcome to Earth. We know you've traveled a long way to reach us, and we want you to know that you're welcome here." Jake's jaw dropped. What was the president doing? This was not the response they had planned. Where was the emergency evacuation order? Where was the call to arms? President Martinez continued speaking in that same calm, friendly tone. "We understand that space travel must be exhausting and lonely. We can only imagine how tired your crews must be after such a long journey. Instead of talking about surrender or conquest, why don't you join us for dinner? We have wonderful food here on Earth, and we'd love to share it with you. We have so many questions about your culture, your technology, your history. There's so much we could learn from each other." In space, aboard the massive command ship, Fleet Commander Vex Thule stood frozen. In 300 years of conquest, across 17 different worlds, no species had ever responded like this. Usually they either attacked immediately with their primitive weapons or begged for mercy while offering their wealth and resources. But dinner? Questions about culture? This made no sense. Vex Thule was a tall, reptilian creature with gray-green scales and eyes like yellow fire. His people, the Zephyrians, had been warriors for so long that they had forgotten any other way to live. They took what they needed from conquered worlds and moved on to the next target. It was simple, efficient, and had never failed. "Commander," said General Crathmore, approaching with heavy footsteps, "the humans are not responding as expected. Their military forces have not moved to attack positions. Their leaders are not fleeing to safety. Instead, they appear to be preparing food." Vex Thule looked at the viewing screen that showed the surface of Earth. In the cities below their ships, humans were indeed moving around, but not in panic. They seemed to be setting up tables in parks and public squares. Children were drawing pictures with colorful markers. Elderly people were sitting on benches, looking up at the alien ships with curiosity rather than terror. "Perhaps it is a trick," suggested Crathmore. "They may be planning a surprise attack while pretending to be peaceful." But Vex Thule's sensors showed no military buildup, no weapons being moved into position, no evacuation of civilians. If this was a trick, it was unlike any military strategy he had ever encountered. President Martinez's voice came through the communication system again. Fleet Commander Vex Thule, we're preparing a welcome feast in Central Park in New York City. We have representatives from every nation on Earth who want to meet you and your people. We have musicians ready to play, artists ready to share their work, and scientists excited to learn about your journey through the stars. Please, consider joining us. We promise you'll be safe here. Vex Thule found himself in a situation he had never faced before. Every instinct told him to begin the bombardment, to force these strange humans to surrender properly. But something about their response made him hesitate. There was no fear in the president's voice, no desperation, no anger, only genuine warmth and invitation. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we're receiving thousands of messages from the planet's surface. Text messages, video calls, even hand-drawn pictures held up to windows. They're all welcoming us, inviting us to visit, asking if we need anything." General Crathmore's scales rippled with confusion. "This is not normal conquest behavior. What should we do?" Vex Thule stared at the planet below. His ships had enough firepower to turn every city to glass within minutes. His ground forces were ready to land and establish control over the population. Everything was prepared for a standard conquest, but the humans were offering them dinner. "Send down a small scout force," Vex Thule finally decided. "We will investigate this strange behavior before proceeding, but maintain battle readiness. This may still be some form of primitive trickery." As the first alien shuttles descended toward Earth's surface, humans in cities around the world looked up and smiled. They waved at the incoming ships as if greeting, old friends returning home after a long journey. Neither species knew it yet, but this moment would change everything. The Zephyrian Empire had arrived expecting another conquest. Instead, they were about to discover something they had forgotten existed: the simple power of a genuine welcome. General Crathmore's boots hit the ground in Central Park with a heavy thud. He was 7 feet tall, covered in battle armor that had protected him through dozens of planetary conquests. His yellow eyes scanned the area, looking for hidden weapons, trapdoors, or any sign of the ambush that must surely be coming. Instead, he found a small human child holding a crayon drawing. "Hi there," said the little girl, maybe 6 years old, with pigtails and a gap-toothed smile. "I drew you a picture. It's you and me being friends." She held up a piece of paper covered in bright colors, showing a tall figure and a small figure, holding hands under a yellow sun. Crathmore stared at the drawing, his weapon hand twitching. In 3 centuries of war, no one had ever drawn him a picture. No one had ever called him a friend. Children on conquered worlds usually ran screaming or hid behind their parents. "Emma, don't bother the nice alien soldier," called a woman approaching, with a warm smile. "I'm sorry, she's very excited to meet you. I'm Dr. Ben Carter, and this is my daughter Emma. We've been waiting all morning to say hello." Dr. Carter extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Crathmore looked at the offered hand, unsure what to do. Zephyrians didn't shake hands. They either saluted military superiors or ignored inferiors completely. "It's okay," Dr. Carter said gently, seeing the confusion. "We can skip the handshake. Would you like something to eat? We have sandwiches, fruit, some amazing cookies that my neighbor Mrs. Helen Brooks made this morning." More humans were approaching now. An elderly man with a walking stick, a woman carrying a baby, teenagers with musical instruments, adults carrying plates of food. They moved slowly, keeping their hands visible, smiling and talking in soft voices as if approaching a nervous animal they didn't want to frighten. Crathmore activated his communication device. "Commander Vex Thule, the humans are behaving very strangely. They appear to be offering food and attempting social interaction. I see no weapons, no military formations, no signs of resistance. Stay alert." Vex Thule's voice crackled through the device. This may be psychological warfare of some kind, but if it was warfare, it was like nothing Crathmore had ever experienced. More humans kept arriving, and each one greeted him like a neighbor they had been hoping to meet. They asked questions about his journey through space, wondered if he had family back home, offered to show him interesting places around the city. Mayor Amy Rogers arrived with a group of city officials, all wearing their best clothes as if this were a celebration rather than an invasion. "General, we're so honored that you chose our city for your first landing. We've prepared rooms at our finest hotels if you and your crew need rest. We have translators ready if language is a problem, and our hospitals are standing by if any of your people need medical attention after such a long space journey." Medical attention? Hotels. Crathmore's mind reeled. When the Zephyrians conquered a world, they took what they needed and left the population to survive or not as fate decided. The concept of conquered people offering comfort to their conquerors was completely alien to him. A young man with a guitar sat down on a nearby bench and began playing soft music. The melody was unlike anything in Zephyrian culture. Gentle, soothing, created for beauty rather than to inspire warriors before battle. Other humans gathered around to listen, some humming along, others swaying slightly to the rhythm. Little, Emma tugged on Crathmore's armor. "Do you like music? My daddy says music makes everyone feel better when they're far from home." Far from home? The words hit Crathmore strangely. He hadn't thought of anywhere as home for so long. The Zephyrian fleet was his home now, moving from system to system, world to world, always conquering, always moving on. Crathmore started to speak, then stopped. His voice came out rougher than he intended, and the humans leaned in to listen, rather than backing away in fear. "We do not have music like this. Would you like to learn?" asked the young man with the guitar. "Music is for everyone. It's not hard, just feeling turned into sound." Across the city, similar scenes were playing out wherever Zephyrian ground. Forces had landed. In Chinatown, Chef Maria Santos was showing alien soldiers how to make dumplings, patiently teaching them to fold the dough while sharing stories about her grandmother's recipes. The soldiers watched with the intense concentration they usually reserved for weapons training. In the financial district, businessman Tony Garcia was explaining human economics to a confused Zephyrian officer, not as a lecture, but as friendly conversation over coffee. "See, we don't just take things," Tony explained. "We trade, we share, we build things together. It works better when everyone benefits." At Columbia University, Dr. Nina Walsh was practically bouncing with excitement as she talked to a group of alien scientists. "Your technology is incredible. How do you manage faster-than-light travel? What's it like seeing different star systems? Oh, and what's your biology like? Are you carbon-based like us? I have so many questions." The Zephyrian scientists found themselves actually answering her questions, drawn in by her genuine curiosity and enthusiasm. They had never encountered a species that wanted to learn about them rather than simply surrender to them. Back in Central Park, Crathmore was sitting on a blanket, something he never imagined doing while wearing battle armor, surrounded by humans sharing food and stories. Emma had convinced him to try a cookie. It's chocolate chip, the best kind. And he was surprised by the sweet taste. "General," said Dr. Carter, "can I ask you something? You've traveled so far and seen so much. Do you ever get homesick? Do you miss having a place where you belong?" The question caught Crathmore off guard. Zephyrian warriors didn't discuss emotions, didn't admit to weaknesses like homesickness. But something about the doctor's kind eyes and genuine concern made him answer honestly. We do not have a home to miss anymore," he said slowly. "Our world was destroyed long ago. We are warriors now. We take what we need from other worlds." The humans around him grew quiet, and Crathmore tensed, expecting judgment or fear. Instead, he saw something he didn't recognize at first. Sympathy. "I'm so sorry," whispered Emma, reaching out to pat his armored hand. "That must make you very sad." Sad. Another word Zephyrian warriors weren't supposed to use. But as Crathmore looked around at these humans who had welcomed him, fed him, shown him kindness without asking for anything in return, he realized that yes, he was sad. He had been sad for a very long time. For the first time in centuries, a Zephyrian warrior began to wonder if there might be another way to live. 3 days had passed since the Zephyrian fleet arrived, and nothing was going according to their plans. Fleet Commander Vexthul stood on the observation deck of his command ship, looking down at Earth with growing confusion. His reports from the ground teams made no sense. "Sir, reported Communications Officer Zimtar, a young Zephyrian who had never seen actual combat before this mission. General Krathmore requests permission to extend his ground survey by another week. Another week? Vexthal's scales rippled with annoyance. The conquest should have been completed in one day. What is taking so long? Zimtar looked uncomfortable. Sir, the general says the humans have invited his entire unit to something called a block party this weekend. He believes it may be some form of tactical gathering that requires investigation. A block party. Vexthal had no idea what that meant, but it didn't sound like military terminology. He activated the communication link to speak directly with his ground forces. General Krathmore, report your status immediately. The voice that came back was definitely Krathmore, but he sounded, different. Relaxed somehow. Commander, the situation here is more complex than we initially assessed. The humans have shown us something called a community garden, where they grow food together and share it freely. I'm learning their agricultural techniques. It's quite fascinating. Fascinating? Vexthal repeated, his voice dangerously low. General, you are there to secure territory, not study farming. Yes, sir, but Commander, they're teaching us things we never learned in warrior training. Did you know that plants grow better when you sing to them? Private Nextol discovered he has a talent for something called composting, and the human children have been showing us their art projects. Art projects. Vexthal felt a headache forming behind his eyes. His elite ground forces were supposed to be establishing military control, not learning about art and agriculture. Meanwhile, in the small apartment above Tony Garcia's auto repair shop, something unprecedented was happening. Mechanic Tony was showing Zephyrian engineer Call-Them how to fix a human car engine, but the conversation had moved far beyond mechanical repairs. See, the thing about fixing things, Tony explained, wiping grease from his hands, is that it's about understanding how all the parts work together. You can't just force something to work, you have to figure out what it needs. Call-Them nodded, his large hands surprisingly gentle as he handled the delicate engine parts. On our ships, when something breaks, we replace it entirely. We never learn to fix things. Well, that seems wasteful, Tony said with a grin. Here, let me show you how to rebuild a carburetor. It's like bringing something back to life. As they worked, Tony's daughter Lisa came home from school. She was 12 years old and completely unafraid of the 7-foot-tall alien in her father's garage. Hi, Mr. Call-Them, she called out cheerfully. Did Dad show you how to make pancakes yet? He makes the best pancakes in the neighborhood. Call-Them looked confused. Pancakes? Food, Lisa explained patiently. Flat, round, sweet, delicious. We eat them for breakfast with syrup. Dad, we should make pancakes for Mr. Call-Them. Later that evening, Call-Them found himself sitting at Tony's kitchen table, learning to eat pancakes with maple syrup while Lisa showed him her homework. She was studying the solar system and her textbook had pictures of distant stars. Is this your star? She asked, pointing to a bright dot in one of the constellation charts. Call-Them looked at the image for a long moment. No, he said quietly. Our star went dark a very long time ago. Our world died with it. Lisa's face grew serious. That's so sad. Where do you live now? On the ships. We have always lived on the ships, moving from place to place. But that's not really living, Lisa said with the simple wisdom of a child. That's just surviving. Living is when you have a home and friends and people who care about you. Across the city, Dr. Nina Walsh was making a discovery that would change everything. She had been studying tissue samples that the Zephyrians had voluntarily provided, and what she found shocked her. Helen, she called to her research partner, Dr. Helen Brooks. Come look at this. The Zephyrian genetic structure shows signs of severe environmental adaptation. Look at these stress markers, these defensive mutations. Helen examined the data on her screen. It looks like their entire species has been in survival mode for generations. These aren't natural warrior traits. They're trauma responses that became genetic. Exactly, Nina said excitedly. Their homeworld didn't just die. It was dying for a long time first. Their warrior culture isn't their original nature. It's how they adapted to lose everything they loved and keep surviving anyway. The implications were staggering. The Zephyrian Empire wasn't a natural military force, it was an entire species suffering from generational trauma, turned into nomadic conquerors because they had forgotten any other way to live. Nina immediately called President Martinez with her findings. Within hours, the information was being shared with psychologists, sociologists, and trauma specialists around the world. If the Zephyrians were acting out of pain rather than natural aggression, then perhaps there was a way to help them heal. Dr. Susan Reed, a trauma therapist from Denver, volunteered to attempt contact with the alien ground forces. She found General Crathmore in Central Park, still surrounded by the humans who had essentially adopted him. "General," she said gently, "I'm a doctor who specializes in helping people who have lost their homes and loved ones. Dr. Walsh's research suggests that your people have experienced terrible losses. Would you be willing to talk about it?" Crathmore's first instinct was to reject the offer. Zephyrian warriors didn't discuss feelings or admit to pain. But 3 days of human kindness had already begun to crack the armor around his heart. "We do not speak of such things," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "It's okay," Susan said softly. "Sometimes the hardest thing is just acknowledging that the pain exists. You don't have to carry it alone anymore." For the first time in over 2 centuries, Crathmore began to cry. Back on the command ship, young communications officer Zimtar was experiencing his own revelation. He had been monitoring human broadcasts, trying to understand their strange culture, when he stumbled across something called music videos. The concept was foreign to him. Sounds and images created purely for emotional expression and artistic beauty. Zephyrian culture had songs, but only war chants and functional communication. This was something else entirely. He found himself drawn to a particular song about finding home and belonging. The melody was simple but somehow moved him in ways he couldn't explain. Without thinking, he began to hum along. "Officer Zimtar," came Fleet Commander Vexthul's harsh voice behind him. "What is that sound you're making?" Zimtar spun around, embarrassed to be caught. "Sir, the humans have this thing called music. It's beautiful." Vexthul's eyes narrowed dangerously. But before he could respond, the communication system activated with an urgent message from the Zephyrian High Command, transmitted across the galaxy from their fleet's mobile headquarters. "Fleet Commander Vexthul," came the cold voice of Supreme War Master Drexnel. "We have been monitoring your progress. Your conquest is behind schedule. You have 48 Earth hours to complete planetary subjugation, or we will send reinforcements to finish the job properly." The transmission ended, leaving silence on the bridge. Vexthul looked around at his crew, seeing uncertainty in their eyes for the first time in his command. Reinforcements meant the complete annihilation of Earth's population. The High Command had no patience for delays or complications. If they arrived, there would be no more block parties, no more music, no more children offering friendship drawings to alien soldiers. For the first time since the invasion began, Vexthul realized he didn't want Earth to be destroyed. He just wasn't sure what to do about it. The news of the incoming Zephyrian reinforcements spread through the fleet like wildfire. Supreme War Master Drexnel was coming personally with the Death Fleet, ships designed not for conquest, but for complete planetary destruction. They would arrive in 6 days. Fleet Commander Vexthul called an emergency meeting with his senior officers. The conference room was tense as his commanders filed in, their faces showing the strain of the past week. They had come to Earth expecting a simple conquest, but nothing had gone as planned. "The High Command has lost patience," Vexthul announced. "Supreme War Master Drexnel arrives in 6 rotations with orders to sterilize the planet if we have not completed subjugation by then." General Crathmore shifted uncomfortably. His armor, once spotless and gleaming, now showed signs of his time on Earth. A small flower that Emma had tucked behind one of his helmet spikes, a friendship bracelet that the teenagers had woven around his wrist. "Commander," Crathmore said, slowly, "the humans are not like other species we have conquered. They have shown us kindness. They have welcomed us as guests, not enemies. Kindness does not matter, snapped Colonel Thekmore, one of the older officers who had remained aboard the ships. We are Zephyrian warriors. We take worlds, not friendship bracelets. But younger Officer Zimtar stepped forward. Sir, with respect, perhaps kindness does matter. The humans have something we lost long ago. They have home. They have peace. They have joy. Joy is weakness, Colonel Thekmore growled. You have been contaminated by primitive emotions. The meeting was interrupted by an incoming communication from Earth's surface. President Lisa Martinez appeared on the main screen, her expression serious but determined. Fleet Commander Vexthul, she said, our satellites have detected additional ships approaching our system. We understand that your superiors may not approve of the friendship our people have been building. We want you to know that Earth officially offers sanctuary to any Zephyrian who wishes to stay. Sanctuary. The word hung in the air like something precious and impossible. Furthermore, President Martinez continued, we're prepared to help you defend against any force that threatens the peace we've begun to build together. We may not have your advanced technology, but we have something else to offer. The screen changed to show scenes from around Earth. Humans and Zephyrians working side by side in gardens, sharing meals, teaching each other their languages. In New York, engineer Caltham was showing a group of human mechanics how to repair Zephyrian technology. In London, Zephyrian scientists were collaborating with human researchers. In Tokyo, alien soldiers were learning to paint watercolors with elderly artists. We have hope, President Martinez concluded, and we believe hope is stronger than any weapon. After the transmission ended, the conference room was silent. Finally, young Zimtar spoke up. Commander, what if she's right? What if there's another way to live? Before Vexthul could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Colonel Thekmore activated his communication device. This is Colonel Thekmore to all loyal Zephyrian forces. His voice boomed through the ship's speakers. Our commander has been compromised by primitive influence. I am assuming command under War Code 7. All personnel will prepare for immediate planetary bombardment. The bridge erupted in chaos as officers chose sides. Some supported Thekmore's traditional approach, while others had been changed by their experiences with humanity. Weapons were drawn as Zephyrian faced Zephyrian for the first time in their history. On Earth's surface, the humans sensed that something had changed. The Zephyrian ground forces were receiving conflicting orders, and some of the alien ships in orbit had begun powering up their weapon systems. Grace Thompson, a diplomat from the United Nations, made a decision that would be remembered forever. She walked calmly to the nearest Zephyrian communication station and broadcast a message directly to the fleet. This is Grace Thompson speaking for Earth. We know you're facing a difficult choice up there. We want you to know that our offer of friendship isn't conditional. Whether you choose to stay and build something new with us or whether you feel you must follow your old ways, we will not fight you. We will not hate you. We will remember the past week as proof that different species can find common ground. Her voice was calm and steady, even as weapons-powered alien ships hung over every city on the planet. But, she continued, we ask you to remember something. Every Zephyrian who has spent time with us this week has seen what it's like to be welcomed instead of feared, to be offered friendship instead of fighting, to be part of building something instead of destroying it. You've seen children who drew you pictures, adults who shared their food, elderly people who told you stories about their lives. You've experienced what it feels like to belong somewhere. On the command ship, the civil war between Zephyrian factions was intensifying, but Grace's words were being broadcast throughout the fleet and many soldiers stopped fighting to listen. The choice isn't between conquest and weakness, Grace said. It's between the past that brought you pain and a future that could bring you joy. It's between being warriors forever and finally coming home. In the engineering section, Caltham was working with human engineer Rick Foster to disable the weapons systems on several ships. They weren't destroying anything, just preventing destruction, maintaining the human philosophy of protection without violence. Rick, Caltham said as they worked, if we do this, there's no going back. The High Command, We'll consider us traitors, Rick smiled grimly. Then I guess we better make sure we're on the right side of history. Together they managed to disable the primary weapons on 12 ships before being discovered by Colonel Thekmore's forces. Back on the command bridge, Vex Thule found himself facing his oldest friend, Colonel Thekmore, with weapons drawn. You have betrayed everything we are, Thekmore said coldly. These humans have made you weak? No, Vex Thule replied, his voice steady. They have reminded me what we used to be, before our world died, before we forgot that strength can be used to protect instead of destroy. The standoff was interrupted by another communication from Earth. This time it was little Emma, the 6-year-old who had given Krathmore his first friendship drawing. Mr. Vexthal, her small voice said through the speakers. General Krath said, you might be scared about your boss coming. I get scared sometimes too. My mommy says when I'm scared I should think about the people who love me. We love you, Mr. Vexthal. All of you. We want you to stay and be our friends. The bridge fell silent. Colonel Thekmore's weapon wavered slightly. Sir, Communications Officer Zimtar reported quietly. We're receiving similar messages from all, over Earth, thousands of them. Humans saying they want us to stay. For the first time in his life, Fleet Commander Vexthal made a decision based not on military protocol, but on what felt right in his heart. All ships, he announced. This is Fleet Commander Vexthal. Any Zephyrian who wishes to join the human resistance against our incoming forces may do so freely. Any who wish to leave and avoid conflict with the High Command may depart immediately with no judgment. The fleet began to split as individual ships and crews made their choices. Some departed immediately, unwilling to face the High Command's wrath. Others powered down their weapons and requested permission to land on Earth's surface. But many remained, ready to stand with their new human friends against the approaching Death Fleet. The real battle was about to begin, but for the first time, in Zephyrian history they would be fighting to protect something rather than to destroy it. Supreme War Master Drexnel's Death Fleet emerged from hyperspace like a black wound in the stars. His ships were different from Vexthal's exploration vessels. These were pure weapons, built for nothing but destruction. Their hulls were jet, black covered in spikes and weapon ports, designed to strike fear into any species that saw them. Drexnel himself stood 9 feet tall, his scales darker than the other Zephyrians, scarred by centuries of warfare. His eyes glowed red with artificial implants that enhanced his vision and removed any capacity for what he considered weakness, emotions like mercy or doubt. Fleet Commander Vexthal, his voice boomed across all communication channels. You will report to my flagship immediately. Your failure to complete this simple conquest in one rotation is unacceptable. On Earth, humans and the Zephyrians who had chosen to stay with them watched the massive Death Fleet take position around their planet. The ships were so large they blocked out sections of the sky, casting ominous shadows over entire continents. President Martinez called an emergency session with world leaders and the Zephyrian commanders who had allied with Earth. The meeting took place in the United Nations building, with Fleet Commander Vexithul and General Krathmore sitting alongside human representatives. We need to face facts, President Martinez said calmly. Those ships up there can destroy our entire planet. We can't fight them with conventional weapons. The Death Fleet has never been defeated, Vexthul said quietly. Drexnel has personally overseen the destruction of 12 worlds. He shows no mercy accepts no surrender. Young officer Zimtar, who had become something of a bridge between the species, spoke up. But he's never faced anything like what we found here. He expects fear, expects desperation. What if we give him something else? Like what? Asked Secretary of Defense Kate Murphy. Before anyone could answer, a communication came through from Drexnel's flagship. The Supreme War Master's image appeared on screens around the world, his red eyes blazing with cold fury. Primitive species of Earth, he announced, you have corrupted my forces with your weakness. This ends now. You have one of your hours to surrender all Zephyrian defectors to me, or I will demonstrate what real power looks like. The transmission ended, leaving an hour of tense silence across the planet. Then something unexpected happened. An old man named Joe Richards, a farmer from Kansas, walked out into his cornfield and looked up at the death fleet overhead. He activated a simple radio transmitter that his Zephyrian friend Coltham had helped him modify. "Supreme War Master," Joe's weathered voice carried across all frequencies. "I'm Joe Richards. I grow corn and tomatoes here in Kansas. I'd like to invite you down for dinner. I make a mean pot roast, and I think we should talk." Across the planet, similar invitations began broadcasting. Chef Maria Santos offered to cook for the entire death fleet. Dr. Nina Walsh invited Drexnell to visit her research laboratory. Children sent up hand-drawn pictures attached to balloons. Musicians played concerts in parks, pointing their speakers toward the sky. On his flagship, Drexnell watched these transmissions with growing confusion and rage. "What is this? Some form of psychological warfare?" "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "our sensors show no military preparations, no weapon deployments. The planet's defense forces remain in non-aggressive positions." "Then they are fools," Drexnell snarled. "Prepare to demonstrate the cost of defying the Zephyrian Empire." But before he could give the order to fire, another transmission came through. This one was from Fleet Commander Vex Thule. "Drexnell." Vex Thule's voice was steady. "I challenge you to single combat. By the ancient codes, you cannot refuse." The challenge was unexpected. Single combat was an old Zephyrian tradition, rarely used in modern warfare, but the ancient codes were absolute. No Supreme War Master could refuse without losing face before the entire fleet. "Very well," Drexnell agreed. "I will come to the surface and end your contaminated existence personally. Then I will sterilize this planet as an example to the galaxy." The combat was set to take place in Central Park, where this whole strange story had begun. As Drexnell's shuttle descended, humans gathered around the area, not to watch a fight, but to do something that baffled the Supreme War Master completely. They were preparing a picnic. Families spread blankets on the grass. Children played games. Nearby, musicians tuned their instruments. The elderly sat in comfortable chairs, chatting quietly. It looked more like a community celebration than the site of a battle that would determine Earth's fate. Drexnell emerged from his shuttle in full battle armor, carrying weapons that could level city blocks. He expected to find Vex Thule armed and ready for combat. Instead, he found his former fleet commander sitting on a blanket with the human child Emma, helping her braid flowers into a chain. "What is this mockery?" Drexnell demanded. Vex Thule stood, slowly, but he made no move toward his weapons. "Drexnell, I want you to see something before we fight. I want you to see what we've been protecting." "I see weakness," Drexnell spat. "I see warriors reduced to playing with primitive spawn." "No," said a calm voice behind him. Drexnell turned to see Farmer Joe Richards approaching, carrying a small potted plant. "You see healing." Joe set the pot down between the two Zephyrians. It contained a small tomato plant, green and healthy, with tiny yellow flowers beginning to form. "This little plant started as a seed," Joe explained, his voice gentle but steady. "Seeds are tough. They can survive terrible conditions, wait for better times, start over when everything seems lost. But they can't become what they're meant to be by staying hard forever. Eventually, they have to let themselves be vulnerable, let in water and light, put down roots, reach toward the sun." Drexnell stared at the plant, his red cybernetic eyes analyzing it as if it might be a weapon. "Your people are like seeds," Joe continued. "You've been surviving in terrible conditions for so long that you forgot you were meant to grow into something beautiful. But it's not too late. You can still choose to put down roots, to let in light, to become something more than just survivors." "Enough." Drexnell raised his weapon toward the old farmer, but before he could fire, something stopped him. It was Emma, the 6-year-old who had drawn the first friendship picture. She stepped between Drexnell and Joe, looking up at the 9-foot-tall Supreme War Master without any fear. "You're really sad, aren't you?" she said softly. "You're sadder than anyone I've ever seen. It must hurt so much to be that sad for so long." Drexnell's weapon wavered. In all his centuries of conquest, no one had ever looked at him and seen sadness instead of fear. No one had ever spoken to him with such simple compassion. "I am not sad," he said. But his voice lacked conviction. "I am Supreme War Master of the Zephyrian Empire." "It's okay to be sad," Emma said, reaching out to touch his armored hand. "My grandpa was sad when Grandma died, and Mommy says it's because he loved her so much. Maybe you're sad because you loved something too, and now it's gone." For the first time in over 300 years, Drexnell thought about his homeworld as it had been before the dying began. He remembered green fields and peaceful cities. He remembered having a family, a name that wasn't a military rank, dreams that didn't involve conquest and destruction. The memories hit him like a physical blow. All the worlds he had destroyed, all the species he had wiped out, all the beauty. He had turned to ash and dust. None of it had ever brought back what he had lost. It had only created more loss, more pain, more empty darkness spreading across the galaxy. Drexnell fell to his knees, his massive frame shaking as centuries of suppressed grief finally broke free. The sound that came from him wasn't quite crying. It was deeper, rawer, the sound of a soul that had been carrying unbearable weight for too long. Emma gently patted his armored shoulder. "It's okay. You don't have to carry all that sadness by yourself anymore." Around the park, humans and Zephyrians watched in silence as the Supreme War Master of the most feared fleet in the galaxy broke down completely, comforted by a small child, who offered nothing but understanding and kindness. When Drexnell finally looked up, his red cybernetic eyes had stopped glowing. For the first time in centuries, he was seeing the world through his own natural vision. The park looked different, softer, more alive, full of colors he had forgotten existed. "I don't remember how to be anything else," he whispered. "That's okay," said Joe Richards, kneeling beside him. "Learning to grow again takes time, but you're not alone anymore. We'll help you remember." In the months that followed, the transformation of the Zephyrian Empire became a legend told throughout the galaxy. The Death Fleet became a construction fleet, helping to build new colonies and research stations. Drexnell, who chose to be called by his original name Dex, worked alongside human farmers to establish agricultural colonies on previously barren worlds. Fleet Commander Vexthal, who now simply went by Vex, helped establish the first interspecies council, dedicated to exploration and cooperation rather than conquest. The council's first mission was to find other species that had been displaced by war and help them find new homes. Young Zimtar became an ambassador, traveling between worlds to share the story of Earth's transformation of an entire empire through nothing more than kindness and an invitation to dinner. And in Central Park, where it all began, a small garden grew around Joe,